The Persona series is currently one of the bigger JRPG series and one of my personal favourites, so I figured I'd go ahead and rank them all. Not in terms of the game's quality, but instead by difficulty of their platinum trophies, as trophy hunting is sort of my thing. We'll quick get the rules out of the way, because no one likes that. This will be covering every Persona game on PlayStation, because those not on PlayStation don't have trophies, obviously. Rule number 2, all of these are based on my experience and opinion, so it's entirely possible that you will disagree with me, and that's okay. Finally, rule number 3, I will be looking at this as though you are focused on hunting the trophies and all resources are at your disposal. If there's a DLC that makes it easier, that is taken into account. Likewise, guides exist and we know they do, they're taken into account as well. All that being said though, let's kick this off. The Persona dancing games round out the bottom of this list, and I tried originally looking at them all individually, but I really couldn't differentiate them enough to warrant putting them separately. They'd all be one after each other anyway, and they're all similar enough to where I really didn't want to find 3 different ways of saying time the button to the music good. While every game has a different song selection, all the plats basically want the same thing. Persona 4 has a more fleshed out story mode though, so if you're actually reading it, that one will definitely take the longest. The most difficult trophy, or at least the most time consuming one, is probably the one related to getting all the costumes in each game. Although this probably takes longer in Persona 4 due to the fact that you've actually got to buy the costumes, whereas in 3 and 5 they are just gotten by challenges. Overall though, as a whole list, if you've got even a vague sense of rhythm, you should get these 3 no problem, and that's why they're at the bottom of the list. Probably the most fun Persona Platinum in my opinion. You can do everything in one playthrough fairly easily without even using a guide, which is what I did when the game first came out. The main reason for this is that they took out all the trophies from the base game that are really difficult and will take you time. Completing all confidants? You don't need to do that. Beating the super boss? Completely unnecessary. Finishing the compendium? No, you don't even need to do that actually. Just use Mara for the whole game, he's a cool dude. To be honest, the hardest part of this plat is just the general length of the game, with a playthrough can easily take like 90 to 100 hours, but you know, it's a good game, so it's not really an issue. Most of the trophies in this version relate to the new added mechanics in Royal, such as the Jazz Club or the new stuff in Mementos. The hardest trophy is probably defeating the Reaper, but even then you can just cheese it, not with the flu season, that was removed. But with just safety mode to just easily win and instant revive till you win. It's not very honourable, but it's a legitimate strategy for trophy hunting, nonetheless. This one is probably the grindiest plat on the list, which is quite surprising considering all the actual long RPGs on here. The main reason for this, and indeed the trophy that will take the longest time, is Eternal Bonds, which basically needs you to max level and get all the bond abilities. This is one of those trophies that is really easy in what you need to do, but just takes forever. What I did is repeat some of the endgame requests over and over and over again while watching something on a second screen. Yeah, it's one of those trophies. In addition to this, you also need to get all the Phantom Thieves to level 70, which can be done at the same time so you can at least double up with the other trophy. Overall though, the trophies in Strikers are really not that difficult, but you need to go out of your way more to get them than in Royal, which is the main reason that I placed it higher. P3P forces you to play the game twice, once as each protagonist. While I strongly dislike this, as everything else can be done in a single playthrough, it actually doesn't take that long as you would think, because you can just sleep through the whole game on your New Game Plus, where you keep all your equipment and personas so you're really good. It's not that difficult. This is also the first game on this list that will have the traditional Persona trophies. For example, all social links and social stats, 100% the compendium, and super bosses are the big highlights here that we're going to talk about. For social links and social stats, you can just do multiple playthroughs and eventually you will get it just by learning what goes on, but there are guides online that have it written down, you can do it in one playthrough, it's good. This stuff was cracked years ago, not difficult if you're willing to use a guide. And that also goes for the compendium, it's all online, the fusing recipes and stuff, so very useful. The super bosses are the hardest trophies in this game, and by some distance I would say. The Reaper can be cheesed with infinite revives on the easiest difficulty, and even then, at the end game, it's not too difficult to defeat him if you have well-built personas. Nah, the real challenge are Margaret and either Elizabeth or Theodore, depending on your choice, I guess. Both these fights won't let you revive cheese, won't let you use certain personas with a lot of resistances, and also require hard-to-get fusion spells. That being said, the preparation for these fights is honestly harder than the fights themselves. Elizabeth in particular has a very easy to learn pattern, and once you figure out when you can attack, when you can charge, when you can heal, when you're safe, when to switch personas, it's not too difficult. Might take you a few tries, but overall, not too bad. Margaret is a bit more unpredictable, but you get your whole party for that fight, which sort of offsets it and makes it a bit easier overall than Elizabeth, I would say. Even though I'm talking in the past like it could have been quite easy, this is probably not something you'll get in one try and without some help, like learning the patterns. It'll take you time, you will get there, don't worry. This trophy list was the reason I was dreading the Royal re-release, which thankfully ended up being fine, as we've already talked about. Base Persona 5 is slightly harder than Persona 3 thanks to one trophy making the difference, and that trophy is Passionate Listener. It requires you to hear 250 unique navigation lines. While not as difficult as a certain other trophy, which we will get to, don't worry, it's easier than that one due to more party members and status effects, and thus more lines overall makes it far more manageable. There's also the Super Boss, which, like Persona 3's, cannot be cheesed. I do think it's slightly harder than those in Persona 3 because you can get instant killed if your whole party gets downed and they have all the elements, so it could happen quite easily. Other trophies are your regular all confidants, all social stats, all side quests. You generally have more stuff that you have to worry about than in Persona 3, which is another reason I do think it is slightly harder, but as with everything, guides exist, and for these things specifically, they're quite useful, so I would recommend using them. The game is really long, so mess-ups extremely costly. Perhaps you could even have to start the game again and play for another like 60 hours, which no one wants to do, even if it's a good game. Screw Hardcore Reset Fan. It's a terrible trophy, and I hate it. It's awful. I don't know how more people have this than have defeated Margaret or finished the compendium, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Relax. You got your classic Persona trophies, all social links, all social stats, the whole shebang. The super boss in this one can actually be cheesed with the infinite revives on safety mode, so that immediately got no challenge just for the trophy. But how come this is higher than Persona 3 and 5 if the secret boss can be cheesed? Simple. You have an annoying trophy that forces you to play the game in a stupid way. That is Hardcore Reset Fan. You need to hear 250 unique lines from Rize. That's all it gives you. First of all, incredibly vague, and nobody can seem to agree what counts as a line for the trophy. Now I can tell you after going through with the checklist when I went for this on the PS4 that all that counts is in-battle lines with the portrait in the top left of the screen. Nothing else counts. What this means is that you are running around trying to get all your party members hit with every status effect and killing a certain amount of enemies instead of playing the game normally and optimally. That is why I dislike this trophy. It forces you to play the game in a way that no sane human person would ever play it, and I really don't like it when games do that. Like I said, there's checklists online that have all the lines written down so you can check them off once you hear them. Just use a fresh save, use a checklist, don't ruin your first playthrough with this, do it separately, it's not fun, don't ruin your first playthrough by doing this not fun trophy. I'm a trophy hunter, I get it, it's worth doing separately so you can focus on it. Ah, fighting games, how I love thee. With your extremely difficult trophy lists for those that aren't dedicated to the genre. Okay, maybe that's not strictly fair. You can boost all the online trophies and Golden Arena just plays itself, so the list isn't impossible or anything. However, those are workarounds, and the hardest trophy in the game is one that the only solution is to get good. The trophy in question, Don't Think Feel, which is actually not the rarest trophy in the game, with that honour instead going to the trophy for beating 3 Golden Arena courses, which is confusing, as I said, that mode literally plays itself on auto battle, which I did for all the trophies for that mode, so it can be done. But back to the challenges, don't think field requires you to complete all of one character's challenges, which sounds really simple, but if you know anything about fighting game combos, these get crazy. Personally, I used Margaret as I found her the easiest, but even then, it's not a, oh, you pick Margaret, you easily get it. No, you just need to practice and then practice some more. For those that care, the PS3 version has separate trophies for the DLC characters, so that version is harder to 100% as there's extra trophies, and you need to beat 3 characters challenges at least, as opposed to 1. For those that enjoy their fingers blistering, 3 times as much. But hey, at least for that you don't have to do every character's challenge. Now that would be mental. Absolutely not, you are mad. This is the one Persona game that I haven't platted and likely never will. There's online trophies, which are likely impossible now without boosting because who's playing Persona 4 Arena on the PS3 in 2023? If you are, honestly respect. As for offline, you've got to beat score attack with every character, which is hard enough with one character, let alone all of them. And the final part of this trifecta of trash trophies is that you need to beat every challenge in the game for every character. Do you know how long it took me to do one character's challenge in Ultimax? On and off, it was like 5 to 6 months, because I'm not good at fighting games. And now you want me to do all the characters that are much harder to master than the one I used? Yeah, no, I'm good. I very much prefer having all my fingers functioning correctly on my hands, thank you very much. This may be doable for fighting game experts that are really dedicated, but believe it or not, this is a spin-off for a JRPG. Most of your players are not going to be experts at fighting games. If you do have this plat, let me know, you're a braver soul than me and I have nothing but respect for you. Now go and do something fun, you have earned it, my friend. And that's the list. Did you agree? Did you think that Persona 3 Portable is actually really difficult? Do you hate that I suggested cheesing the super bosses for the trophies? Do you think Hardcore Rosette Fan is actually the best trophy in the game? I really hope not on that one, we're going to have a falling out. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more trophy hunting videos, want to get this off the ground, very excited to do it. Subscribing is of course free for those unaware, and also comment and let me know more ideas for series that I should rank the Platinum Trophies. I have a few ideas, and the ones that I haven't beaten the Platinum Trophies for yet, I guess I'll have to get on that, won't I? Once again, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video.